Ann Chertoff. Ann Chertoff is the Chief Operating Officer of Beaumont Etiquette, and she's also a co-founder of the Plaza Hotel Finishing Program. She began working with Meier in 2016 and has extensive background in marketing and media, where she worked in 20 years experience in magazine and websites. She currently lives in Brooklyn, New York with her family. So welcome everyone, Ann Chertoff.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. We have a lot of different things we're going to talk about today related to networking and public speaking. And if you have any questions, definitely put it in the chat. Happy to answer all of them, and we'll get started. So networking. Oh, I got to share my screen. Sorry. I'm so used to being in person, and it says one person at a time. Sorry, give me a second. Should be used to this by now. Okay, we're good? Networking. So networking, the one thing to think about is things are going to start getting back to what we knew as normal, right? A lot of people, we're going to talk a little bit about networking online, which is something that people are definitely going to continue to be doing. But I know for myself that there are a lot of conferences and events that are starting to get on the schedule for summer, fall, late 2021, and definitely into 2022. So we're going to talk about virtual as well as in-person networking, because there's things that you can do with both. And when you're graduating school, the best thing you can do is just meet a lot of people. And I would definitely say that while you're in school, take advantage of the fact that you can still call yourself a student, because people are more open and interested in helping students and working with students, so that you can say, oh, I'm a student, I'm learning this, and they're going to be more inclined to network with you than if you were just coming up to them at an event. But definitely think about how you can take advantage of the fact that you're a student. And then we'll talk a little bit about different types of networking events and how you can make the most of those. So let's go into some in-person activities, since that's something that we haven't been doing for a while, and it's definitely going to be something that comes hopefully later this year. So business event etiquette, whether you're at a cocktail party or a conference, you want to look approachable. So what does that mean? You want to, unless you have a really outgoing personality where you're not afraid to just walk up to someone and be like, hey, my name's Ann, it's so nice to meet you, and all that kind of stuff. You want to think, what could make you look more approachable so that people would want to come up and approach you? And one of the things that you can do is put away your phone, because if you're looking at your phone the whole time, people are going to think you're busy, and definitely not someone that they're going to want to engage in. They're not going to want to bother you. But the other thing is to have a drink in your hand. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be an alcoholic drink. I always drink water. So it's, glass of water, lemon, soda, seltzer, alcohol, whatever you want to drink. If you're holding a glass in your hand, you look more approachable, and people are more inclined to say hello. And because of that, or complementary to that, is where you might meet the most people at the networking event is actually by the bar. I know we're still going to be probably concerned with social distancing, but while you're at the bar waiting for your drink, you might easily be able to strike up a conversation with the person next to you. So that's one place that you can meet people really easily, because you're both waiting for drinks and your phones are away. Another thing you can do is walk around the room. Don't stay in one spot, but walk around the room. You can walk clockwise, you can walk counterclockwise, whichever way you're comfortable. And then just walk around the room and you'll meet different people as you go. Because if you find most people stand still in one spot, and it's less likely that they're going to meet more people because they're not moving around the room. The other thing you want to think about is when you arrive at a networking event, you want, like I said before, you want to put your phone away, put your coat away if there's a coat check. And then you can also scan the room to see if there's anyone that just kind of break the ice for yourself and get into that kind of conversational, relaxed mood. Finding someone that maybe they can introduce you to someone. If they're talking to someone, that's another way to start meeting and mingling and networking. Now, what do you do if you forget someone's name? I'm always forgetting someone's name. I can see someone, I know everything about them, I just will not remember what their name is. So what you want to do is you want to say their name 3 times. So if I was going to, let's say I'm going to meet John. So, hi, my name's John. Hi, John, it's nice to meet you. That's saying it once. Then if someone else is there, John, do you know Sarah? That's 2. Sarah, John and I were just talking about, that's 3. If you repeat someone's name at least 3 times, it'll help you remember their name. Now, my name is Ann. Sometimes people call me Annie, which is fine. But sometimes they might call me Anna, which is not fine because that's definitely not my name. So it's important that you correct someone up front, because all of a sudden they've said your name wrong a few times. Now all of a sudden they're introducing you to people. And then also you don't want to then be in a situation where 2 weeks later you meet them and you go, actually, my name is Anne, it's not Anna. And then they feel bad because they've been introducing you and they've been saying your name wrong. So what you want to do is correct someone, and you don't have to be rude or defensive about it. Just be like, I'm sorry, my name is Anne. Oh, okay. And that's pretty much the end of it. Myka, my business partner, she gets a lot of people say Myka. And so, sometimes she'll say, my name's actually Myka. And people do that all the time. If you want to do something a little self-deprecating and say like, oh, people make that mistake all the time, to kind of put it back and take it away from them and put that awkwardness off of them. But it's definitely important that if someone mispronounces your name, that you correct them. And that's in any situation, whether it's a networking event, whether you're in a social event, whether you're in a class, that's important. Name tags. So a name tag, unless it's on a lanyard where it goes around your neck, your name tag should go over your heart. And the reason why it should go over your heart is because when you shake hands with someone, if you can see in the video, like I'm now blocking the right side of my body because I'm shaking hands with my right hand. So my left side is clear. So if I had my name tag here and I went like that, you wouldn't be able to see my name. So this way, with your name tag here, hi, I'm Anne, you can still see the name tag. So unless you're wearing a lanyard where it's around your neck, your name tag should go here. I wouldn't wear it on your hip or your waistband because people don't really want to be like looking down to see your name. It's kind of awkward for everyone. So definitely put it here. A lot of times people use stickers so they won't really damage clothes with a pin. You also see a lot of magnets today. So you can put a magnet on, this side and the underside of your shirt, and that won't damage the fabric of your clothes either. Now, what do you do if you have a shadow networker? A shadow networker is the person that you just can't shake. They're kind of like your sidekick, but at some point you might want to abandon your sidekick so that you can mix and mingle on your own for whatever reason. So one thing to do is, and here's an example of a shadow networker. You don't want to do, oh, I'm gonna go get a drink at the bar, and then they say, oh, I'm gonna go get a drink at the bar too, or oh, I'm gonna go use the restroom. You know what? I have to go use the restroom too. So you want to definitely say, you want to end it in a polite way. So what I would do to close the conversation is to say, it was so nice meeting you. I'm glad that we had the chance to connect. You can give them a card, or you can ask for their card, exchange information, and say, I'll be in touch with you, or let's stay in touch, or it was great seeing you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and goodbye. But you want to say it in a nice way. You never want to be aggressive or angry or rude to someone. You just want to nicely just kind of end that conversation. But if you tease it out because you're not sure how to do that, and you end up saying like, oh, I'm going to go over there, well, then they're going to go over there too, because there's no reason not to. The other thing you could do is you could introduce them to someone else who you think they might have something in common with, or it might be a good benefit for both of them to connect. And then once you make that introduction, you can then step away and go on your way. The other thing is close talkers. So a close talker is like from Seinfeld, someone who's like super in your face, and you just kind of have to keep leaning back. But at some point you're leaning back to the point where it's like you're going to limbo under a pole. And so the idea of what you want to do is you just want to take 1 foot and step back, but just with 1 foot, so that you're further away, but you're not just stepping away, because then they'll just come right after you. So if you put 1 foot back and you're kind of like leaning back, but you're not doing the limbo, then you're in a situation where you kind of put a line in the sand, because they're not going to tango in and like try to come in that close. So the idea is to kind of just take a step back, lean back to kind of give you a little bit more room. Other things when you're at cocktail events or conferences, for example, if you're invited to a holiday party, whether it's a Memorial Day party, a 4th of July party, a Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa party, you want to wear something that's probably festive for the occasion, but still be business appropriate, because we're talking about business settings. Obviously, if you're invited to your friend's house or your parents' house, you don't have to dress in business appropriate attire. But if your job is asking everyone to come to a 4th of July party, still think about what is appropriate. That doesn't mean you need to come in a suit or tie, but maybe you're coming in a pair of slacks or linen shorts or a sundress, instead of maybe like, Daisy Dukes and flip-flops. Or if it's a holiday season party, maybe everyone's wearing ugly Christmas sweaters. Maybe you're wearing a cocktail dress. Maybe you're wearing a jacket without a tie. You still want to be business appropriate. You want to dress for the occasion, but you also want to make sure you're dressing for this setting. You also want to be aware of how much alcohol you're consuming at business events, whether it's a conference or whether it's a holiday party with colleagues that you work with all the time. I can't even tell you, there's a conference that I used to go to two or three times a year, and there was always someone who they drank way too much, to the point where it's like someone had to literally carry them out. They would pass out, and it was not appropriate. It's a business setting. Their boss is there, their subordinates are there, clients are there, and it's not a pretty picture. It's not a professional thing to do. So you want to make sure that you're limiting how much you're drinking, if you're drinking at all. The other thing is you also want to make sure you're eating. So if you are drinking, you also want to make sure you're eating something. You also want to make sure that you avoid any pre-drink. Now, some office settings might be super lively. I worked at AOL, and they had a happy hour like every Friday from like 3 to 5. And while, I personally was like, well, if you're just going to drink, I'm just going to go home early. It was like the thing where people just came. Now, you can be in an office setting like that, which is super laid back, and that's fine. But you still want to be drinking responsibly. You don't want to necessarily go for a pre-drink before you're going to go to this party, because you still want to be coherent. You don't know who you're going to end up with on the dance floor or in the buffet line or chatting with. It could be a manager, it could be the CEO. You never know who you're going to run into at these events. And so you want to be extremely cautious of that. And definitely, again, don't forget to eat something. It's super important that you eat something. Now, if you're going to a business event where you're at a meal with a client, or even a meal with a manager, vice president of the company, your senior manager and other colleagues, whatever level they're at, when it comes to alcohol, don't order a drink of alcohol unless your manager or the client does. So if everyone's having soda, don't order a beer. If your manager's ordering drinks, then feel free to order drinks. But you also want to make sure that you feel that you're eating enough and you're not overdoing it for yourself. So for example, I don't drink alcohol for whatever reason. I just never did. So if everyone's ordering a drink and they're like, come on, get a glass, like, I'm just going to say no. Never feel pressure to drink. You also, another thing, and we'll talk about this in dining etiquette, a lot of people ask us a lot of the time, if my client or my colleagues are ordering dessert, do I have to order dessert? And the answer is no. You don't have to order something you don't want to eat. You definitely don't want to waste food. And you definitely don't want to force yourself into eating something, especially if you have dietary restrictions or food allergies, or for religious reasons, or just for me, I just don't like drink. Never feel forced that you have to drink. Like I said before, like I'm always walking around with just like a glass of water with ice in it. Sometimes people draw conclusions. When I was a little younger, people kept asking me if I was pregnant. Then someone once asked me if I was in recovery. And I was like, just water. So sometimes I'll put a lime in it, and then people just think it's like a tonic or a vodka or something, and that you don't have any questions. But it's completely up to you. So,
Mike, a quick question. Is there ever an appropriate time if you're a networking event, like a conference, and there's tables and there's chairs to actually sit down, or do you recommend not doing that because then you're stuck in that scenario?
I think if you're eating, then you definitely want to sit down, because if you have a plate and, unless you're just, and you're going to eat with your fingers, if you have a fork, like, and you're eating like this, that's one thing, but then where's your drink and where's your napkin? And, then you want to get your business card out, like, or you're going to, depending on the conference. I used to go to a conference and it was all about the photos for Instagram. So everybody had their phones out to tag things. So sitting down while you're eating is always a good idea. If you can sit down with someone else and have a conversation when you're eating, that's fine. I wouldn't necessarily say, get a plate, sit down, scarf down the food really fast so that you can get up and go. You definitely want to take your time. Nobody wants to get sick, but it's completely fine. And also, if you're having a really good conversation with somebody, and let's say you're in a big room and maybe there's a dance floor, or maybe it's a convention center and it's really loud, but there's tables off to the side where there's maybe some food. You can always make the suggestion and say, why don't we go over there, sit down, continue this conversation over there where it's a little bit more quiet, a little bit more private, depending on what it is. But eating and sitting is definitely a good idea, because you're most likely, it's hard to like juggle, right away, it's like my phone and my glass. And then it's like, how am I shaking somebody's hand? It's all those kinds of things. Okay, so cross-cultural etiquette. You always want to practice the culture and the cultural protocol and etiquette of the country you're in. So for example, if we're in the United States, a lot of the times we shake hands. A number of times we might, lean in for like an air kiss. In this country, we usually just do one. But let's say you're going to Paris and you have a business trip in Paris. Well, in Paris, there's 2 kisses. So it's, which I know Myka talked about in the first lesson we had last month. And so what you want to be aware of is what to expect from people. Because if you go in for that first kiss and now all of a sudden it's like you're going out and you're staying out and they're coming in for the second one, it's kind of like, wait, what am I doing? And it's a little bit awkward. So definitely with greetings, you want to know what's expected. If you're a woman and you go to the Middle East, you should be aware that it's most likely the man is not going to shake your hand for religious reasons. If I'm in a Orthodox Jewish neighborhood in Brooklyn, I know that I can't shake hands with the owner of the business because men and women don't interact that way. So you want to have an understanding of that because you want to be comfortable yourself. You don't want to feel like you made a mistake. And it's important for you to understand what the other culture is and what the managing the expectations for yourself, for your colleagues, for your team, and, making sure that everybody is doing the appropriate things in that culture. So before you go away on a business trip, and even if you're going away on vacation, educate yourself, find out like, okay, what are the appropriate greetings? What are the customs? If you're dining in another country, like, is it appropriate to clear your plate to let your guest know or your host know that you're full? In some countries, it's appropriate to leave a little bit of food left on your plate to show that you've eaten and you don't want more, because if you scraped your plate clean and joined the clean plate club, they might say, oh my God, you're so hungry, do you want more? So you just want to learn a couple of those things so that when you're at a business meeting, whether you're at a meal, that you're aware of what those customs are. If you see something that's unusual to you, whether it's the way someone's dressed or an action, you never want to stare and don't ask someone like, why did you do that? Google is a great resource, but you can always ask someone who maybe a friend or a relative in that country, why something was done a certain way, but you don't want to necessarily ask a client or a stranger, why did you do that? Because it just has like a negative connotation sometimes. If you do something wrong and you offend someone, and obviously you didn't mean to do that, just apologize and say, I'm so sorry. I mean no disrespect at all. And then that's the end of it. But you want to definitely make sure that you have a good understanding of the culture that you're going to, and so that you have a knowledge of what's appropriate and definitely what's not appropriate. You also might want to learn some basic words and greetings. Hello, how are you? Maybe ask, how to ask for directions, like some basic language so that you can definitely get around. I found that when I was in Europe, I was using my high school level French, and the guy finally looked at me and asked me in his French accent if I speak English, because my French was that bad. So you might find that people speak English and they can help you. And obviously there's Google Translate and all sorts of translation apps, but it's always a good idea to just get at least a few words under your belt so that you have some level of comfort in interacting and speaking with other people. Now, business cards. Nobody's really been using business cards a lot because we haven't really been interacting. And also people were worried about touch, but the CDC came out and said that you don't have to worry about what you're touching as much as airborne when it relates to COVID. So business cards are probably going to come back into the commonality of networking and interacting with people. So when you're giving someone a business card, it's done at the end of the meeting or at the end of the conversation. So you're in a meeting with people, and the end of the meeting, you would hand out business cards. Sometimes you go to a meeting and like someone might take out a business card, like it's a stack of cards at the casino, and they just like deal them out. But most of the time, and the appropriate time would be at the end of the meeting after everyone's been formally introduced. Now, sometimes someone might use one hand to give you a business card, or they might use two hands. And whatever way that they've given you the business cards are the ways you want to accept it. So if someone gives you a business card with two hands, you want to accept it with two hands. You find that a lot in Asian countries where two hands is the norm, but you always just want to be aware of that. And now that you are and you've learned it, you'll see it more often when someone gives you two and then one. The other thing is you want to look at the front and the back of the card. So it used to be, I want to say olden times, but like 20 years ago, business cards were only written on the front. The back was white and the front had like company name, address, contact information, your name, all of that. Now, business cards can be in all sorts of shapes and sizes. You might have one that's in a color. You might have one in the shape of a rooster. You might have one, that's super thick, that's gilded edges, that's slanted, because people are really creative in how they want their brand, whether it's their own business or the company they work for. There's a very distinct way that they want their business to be perceived. So you always want to look at so when you get a card, you want to look at the front and the back of the card, because there might be something on both sides. So maybe sometimes the company name is on one side and then the contact information is on the other, or all the contact information and companies on one side, but then there's some sort of, handle for social media or a tagline or something's on the other. So it's always good to take it and not just put it in your bag, but look at it. Oh, thank you. And then also, you also want to smile and, give them eye contact. Now, here is a networking trick. You are a student. You are most likely not going to be hired out of school to be president of a company. You're probably going to be hired to be a junior level, maybe mid-level person, depending on what your experience is and with like work and stuff like that. It is more likely that you are going to want to get somebody else's card who's in a hiring position or management position or someone that you want to meet, like a senior level person at a company. And it's less likely that they're necessarily going to want your card. But business cards, it's a reciprocal thing. So you need to make a business card, and you can do it. You can do them. They're called business cards or calling cards. I think Shutterfly makes them. You can probably find someone on Zazzle that has them. You can make them at a stationery store. You could probably go anywhere. Paper Source might be able to help you. But what you want to do, even if you don't have a job yet, you want to have your name, maybe your social media handle, your phone number, and your email address. You do not need to have your address. Why don't you need to have your address? The same reason you don't need to have your address on your resume. Nobody needs to know where you live. They're not sending you a letter in the mail. They're not mailing you a check. All you need is your email address, because your mailing address, especially on a resume, can take up 1 or even 2 lines, depending on what your format is and what the style of your resume is. So don't worry about putting your address there. The other thing with addresses is that I have someone who babysits for me, and she is from Ohio, but she is going to school in New York, and she's looking for an internship in New York, and she had her Ohio address on her resume. And I said to her, it looks like you live in Ohio. Why would someone give you an internship in New York? They're not going to pay for your moving expenses. Plus, it's taking up space on your resume. So just get rid of the address. You have your email address. You have your phone number. You can have your Instagram handle if you want, because it's related to what you do. Maybe you do a visual art thing or some other kind of product that you want people to see. But don't worry about your address line, because it really just takes up space. So going back to business cards, you want to have a business card. It could have your name. It could have an interest. Like, let's say you are accounting, or you're a writer, or you're a photographer. Whatever it is that you want that job description to be. But the key is that you want to say, oh, here's my card, because then they're going to say, oh, and here's mine. And then once you have their card, you can now reach out to them for an informational interview, for a follow-up. Maybe you see a job opportunity online that you want to apply for, and now you have their information, because every company's email address is completely different. So like, you don't know if it's first initial last name at whatevercompany.com. You don't know if it's first name at whatevercompany.com. You don't know if there's a dot in between the names, if there's an underscore between the names. Every formula is different, and you can't always figure it out easily by doing some Google searches. Sometimes you can, but you can't always. So what you want to do is you want to make a business card so that you can say, here's my card. And then they say, here's mine. Because once you have their card, then you can reach out to them. It's like, then you have the power. No, but it's really important, because then you can do informational interviews. And if you're not familiar with what an informational interview is, I'll just do it really quickly. An informational interview is an opportunity for you to get information from an individual or a company to learn more about that individual and that company. Not because you're writing a dissertation or a biography on them, but because you want to know, how did they get their job? What college courses did they take? Did they do internships? What stepping stones did they take to get where they want to go? What should you be doing in order to get where you need to go? And they know that you're not looking for a job, and you know that you're not expecting a job offer. But an informational interview is something that is an easy way for you to network with someone, to get to know them a little better, for them to get to know you a little better. So if you're in a situation, for example, I went on an informational interview for a job at Martha Stewart when I was out of college, and I knew that I wasn't getting a job offer. But I just was like, you know what? I just want to learn a little bit more because all I wanted to do was work at Martha Stewart. And 3 months later, I get a call from them, and they said, we have a junior level entry. It's $8 an hour because it was temp. It was a temp job, but because they had done the informational interview with me, they knew my interests, they knew a little bit about me. They offered me that opportunity first before putting it out there anywhere else, because I had that informational interview, and then I got that, and then it rolled into a career, and I was there for 4 years. So an informational interview is a really great opportunity for networking. And this is going to go into what we're doing right now with virtually, because you can do an informational interview from afar. You can do an informational interview on Zoom or on the phone. I mean, in person is ideal when we get back to that, but you can definitely do it over Zoom. So what are some other ways that you can network virtually? Webinars and online social get-togethers are really, really important. Every industry has an organization, some sort of association, alumni groups that you can definitely hobnob and network with. Definitely take advantage of the alumni associations at UNLV. You never know who you can meet from that, whether they graduated 3 years ago or 30 years ago. You never know. And another thing is like when you meet someone from an alumni, when I meet someone from my alma mater, I'm always like, oh my God, how can I help you? And that's probably going to be the same reaction you get from people. So it's really important to think about what are the alumni associations and what's the industry that you want to go into, and what associations do they have, like a young person, student, or recent graduate program that you can go to. You also want to be comfortable with different tech platforms. Now, Zoom, this is what we're on right now. A lot of people are interested in and have been doing Zoom for a while, but there's also Teams by Microsoft. There's Google Hangouts. I was on some WebEx thing. Familiarize yourself a little bit, because you never know which one someone is going to use. And I can tell you, Zoom to me is the easiest out of all of them. I found the other ones can be a little bit trickier. And unless you have an IT person that you can rely on to help you, but you definitely want to kind of, Google like how to use Microsoft Teams, there's an Amazon one. I don't even remember what it's called, but there is one. But you want to make sure that you're familiar with different programs. Now, the other thing is, if you haven't been in touch with someone in a while, whether it's a classmate or once you're working, and or if you already are, and there's someone that you haven't been in touch with in a while, just reach out to say hi. You don't have to reach out and be like, hey, can I sell you something? Or, hey, do you have a job for me? But just touch base, just, hey, just wanted to see how you're doing. I'm going to be, or let's say it's someone from your hometown and it's like, hi, I'm coming home in a couple of weeks. I thought if you were free and comfortable, we could grab a coffee or ice cream or something like that. Just to reach out to people and see how they are. If you see something that you think is interesting to someone, let's say you're reading the paper in the morning and you're like, you know what, I know someone who would be interested in this article, forward it to them. And you could just be like, hey, I was reading this and thought you might be interested in it. And it could then spark a conversation, from a conversation with someone that you hadn't spoken to in a long time. So think about what might interest them in order to engage them in a conversation. But definitely, don't call someone. I actually had a call with someone, a dear friend of mine, who I got into the habit of only calling when, I needed a contact for some job. And finally she called me out on it. And she's like, you only call me to ask me for a reference or if someone died. And I was like, that's true. And I was like, I felt horrible about that. And then like 3 months went by and I picked up the phone. I was like, I just wanted to see how you and your family are doing. I know her son has special needs. And I was like, how's your son? How's school going? And we just spoke for 20 minutes. And she's like, it was really nice to hear from you. And then she offered me an opportunity, because it wasn't like I picked up the phone to just, say, hey, what kind of jobs do you have available? So you just want to think, don't always just reach out to someone and be like, hey, do you have any opportunities? You can also reach out just to kind of touch base. And it doesn't have to be on the phone or video. It could easily be an email. LinkedIn, I assume everybody here has a LinkedIn profile. I highly recommend. If you don't, you do. LinkedIn is a really great way to connect with people both inside and outside your industries. But you also want to think outside the box. Your LinkedIn people can be people that you went to school with. It can be professors that you had a good relationship with. It could be friends from high school or junior high school or even elementary school. It could be friends of your family. It could be relatives. And you never know what those doors will open. One thing I always say with networking is you never want to think, one branch out. You kind of want to think like networking is a family tree. So you want to think like all the different branches that you can go to. So there's the people you went to maybe preschool, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, grad school. Then there's the people you might have gone to camp with, or had a summer job with, or a job during the school year with. Maybe it's a friend of a friend. So you never know where that door is going to open. Maybe it's a connection through a parent or a family member. You might be surprised, but your parents' generation and even your grandparents' generation, they're probably friends with the CEOs and the senior hiring managers, not the people that you went to high school with. So it's a good idea to kind of connect with them, to be like, hey, Dad, I'm interested in going into finance. Do you know anyone that could help me? Oh yeah, my golf buddy is actually the CFO of such and such. Or, hey Mom, what do you know? Oh yeah, my friend from church, her da-da-da does, whatever. So you want to think branch wise. Like, you really want to think, it's like, you could either think branch or you could think root. Either one works. And don't be afraid to link into people, but definitely link into people that you have some connection with. I can tell you, I never accept anyone who I have no connection with or I've never heard of. It's always nice to send like a note with your LinkedIn, like, hi, we went to such and such together, or, oh my God, it's been forever, or congratulations on that new promotion. So there's different ways that you can write in a little note to make it a little bit more personal. Don't be afraid to ask colleagues or past clients or people you worked with to write a recommendation for you, or be a reference for you. And that could be anything. Maybe you babysit, maybe you worked at a day camp, maybe you were a server at a restaurant. Like, those people can write recommendations for you too. All of those jobs, every job has, organizational skills, service skills. There's so many different skills that you can be recommended for and use them as a reference. Now, you can really take advantage of LinkedIn by sharing articles, things that you've written, maybe things that you find interesting on your feed, and then people comment and things like that. And the other thing is, you want to make sure your photo is presentable. You do not want it to be like a selfie. You do not want it to be like three people and then you just crop the other people out and it's like this. You want to have a professional photo, and you can take it on your phone. It's easy to take it on your phone, have like a clean background, make sure the light is good, and then have someone take a picture. Do not do a group photo. Do not do a too dark photo where you can't really see your face. Make sure you're wearing something professional and you're not in a bathing suit. LinkedIn is definitely a professional space. It is not Facebook. This is not for like, it's not necessarily not for wishing people happy birthday, but it's definitely something where hiring managers and HR people are definitely looking for it. Now, when you're talking with people, you're interacting, that picture is actually from a conference that I went to in 2015. And, sometimes you're divided into groups and you're eating with lots of different people and you're like, okay, what do I talk to these people about? Or you're put in a situation where you're trying to figure out, okay, I don't know these people, but I have to come up with a conversation. So what should you bring up? Unless obviously you can talk about work, what your role is, what your clients are, like that's really easy. But you also can talk about like upcoming plans. COVID is a little bit different, but maybe you have a vacation coming up. Maybe there's a milestone in your family and you guys are all going away. Weekend plans, upcoming events, non-sensitive topics. Stay away from politics, religion, sex, money, vices, illness. Nobody wants to hear about your IBS. You want to be extremely cautious about talking about those types of things. Politics is definitely something you might assume what someone's politics are, but you really, unless you actually know because you've spoken with them about it, you don't know. And there's no point into getting into a political debate at a networking event where you're supposed to be schmoozing and getting new clients. Avoid family specifics. Don't ask someone, oh, are you married? Like, if they're not wearing a ring, they may or may not be married for whatever reason they're not wearing it. But, you don't want to say, oh, are you married? No, actually, I'm going through a terrible divorce. You don't want to end up in a situation like that. You also don't want to say to someone like, oh, do you have any kids? Like, maybe they don't want to have kids. Maybe they've been trying and they can't, and they have fertility issues. You want to kind of avoid family specifics. The weather. The reason you don't want to talk about the weather is because the weather is really boring. Unless there's some sort of like crazy storm, like, oh my God, did you see that blizzard? Something like that. But, oh, it's nice outside. Yeah, I think it's going to be nice tomorrow. You're in Las Vegas. Wow, it's hot today. You think it's going to be hot tomorrow? Probably. We're in the desert. So the weather isn't always a great topic to talk about. And the other thing is you never want the first question out of your mouth to be, so what do you do? Or even, so what do? You want to say, hi, nice to meet you. I'm from New York. Oh, where are you from? And then ease into it, because you don't want to just come across as if you're trying to be very opportunistic. Like if they tell you, oh, I work in sales. Oh, I'm not interested in talking to sales, and then you walk away. So you definitely don't want to be, so what do you do first? Always have some newsworthy topics in your back pocket, things that are happening, current events that you can talk about. Ask open-ended questions instead of just like, how are you? Fine. Oh, where are you from? New York. Oh, where in New York? I grew up there. Or, you want to have something a little bit more to talk about. So open-ended questions are really great. We always use the WWHD approach, which is what, why, how, and then compliment. So like, oh, what are you doing here? How long are you staying in town? Like, and then you can, how do you know the host? Or why did you decide to come to this conference? So those are all, more open-ended questions. And then compliment, you don't want to just say like, oh, I like your bag, but like you want to compliment on something like, I really enjoyed the speech that you gave this morning at the conference. Or, I'm looking forward to hearing your talk. I read your book. So those kinds of meaningful compliments instead of just like, I like your dress. You can say you like your dress too, or your shoes or something, but you definitely want to get a little bit meatier when you can. Style. I'm watching the clock and I know I go on a little bit. So let's go into style for a little bit. You are an extension of the company you work for at all times. If you are on a business trip, you are not on vacation. I don't care if the business trip is to Hawaii and you're staying at the Four Seasons. If you are on a business trip, you are on a business trip. That doesn't mean you can't bring a bathing suit and go to the pool. It just means that maybe you should keep the risque bathing suits back in your at your home. But you definitely want to make sure that you're dressed professionally for all these events. And if your company has a dress code, it's important that you follow that dress code, no matter where you are. Now, what does that mean? If you are unsure of what the company dress code is, it's better to dress a little bit more conservatively. That means guys wear a jacket. Doesn't necessarily mean a tie, but you can wear a jacket. You can always take it off. Ladies, you can wear maybe like a camisole or like a sleeveless top and maybe put a cardigan or a blazer over it and then take it off if you feel like you can, if you're not sure. But if you aren't sure, and you can either ask HR what the policy is, but you can also look to some of the senior managers, people who've been with the company for a longer time, and then they might be able, just by without even asking them, just seeing what they're wearing can give you an idea of like what's appropriate. So here are some style guidelines. Clothing should be tailored, not too tight or not too loose. If you're going to wear jeans, because jeans is super casual and allowed at most offices, especially on casual days, they shouldn't have any rips or holes in them. I don't care how trendy it is, your jeans should not have holes in them. Ironed attire always looks a little bit more professional than something wrinkled. Even if something comes out of the dryer and it says it's iron free, it's all good, you usually have to put an iron to it. If you're traveling, most hotels will have an iron in the room. Otherwise, you can get like a little travel iron or a steamer that you can pack with you or leave at home. But ironed attire always looks more professional than something that's wrinkled. If you're going to wear a dress or a skirt with a slit in it in business, a slit is for function. It ensures that you can move your legs and you can walk, so you're not like super tight, because the skirt's like a pencil skirt and it's super tight. So you just want to make sure that it doesn't go too high in a business setting, as that would not necessarily be professional. For shoes, closed-toed shoes, open-toed shoes, peep-toe pumps, sandals are usually okay. But with sandals for men and women, you want to just make sure they're not flip-flops. But you also want to check what the appropriate sandals are acceptable at your office. Sandals may be acceptable, but they have to have an ankle strap versus no ankle strap. So like a Birkenstock might not be acceptable in some offices. They might be acceptable in others. So it really depends on where you're working, and your HR guidebook will be able to tell you that. For a gentleman, a jacket and tie is always the most formal, but you should definitely take a look at what the senior managers are wearing in your office. And if you're not sure, ask if a jacket or tie is appropriate. If you're meeting with senior management or you're meeting with clients, it's always better to err on the side of caution, except of course, if you guys are meeting at, a batting cage or golf range, or you guys are going out for drinks. Same with ladies. Like if you're going to a business luncheon or anyone, you always just want to dress a little bit more conservatively, but also dress for the setting. If you're going out to, a luncheon, that might be a little bit more conservatively dressed than if you're meeting on a golf course. So you just want to think a little bit about what you're wearing, both for the formality of the occasion, but also for the setting of the occasion. And I just have to say this because we are asked to say this all the time, not that media asks us to say this, but undergarments for men and women should remain hidden all the time. So your pants, if you have belt loops in your pants, you should wear a belt around them. And then make sure all, tank tops, straps, camisoles, everything is straps are in place. Never wear anything that's controversial or inappropriate or has offensive language. Stay away from ripped t-shirts. Leggings and athleisure wear are usually a no-no in most office environments, but then again, some offices may be super casual, and leggings have been very, very, very common today, so it might be appropriate. The same thing with gym shoes, like some sneakers, look, Valentino, Christian Louboutin, like there are fancy brands that make sneakers. So just make sure if you are allowed to wear sneakers at the office, what kind of sneakers are appropriate and what's not appropriate. Work boots are usually not unless you're working at a construction site. Flip-flops, open back shoes and sandals are usually a no-no, but you definitely just want to ask. And then hats. Hats are usually not appropriate to be worn indoors, but they are appropriate outdoors. So like I said, like if you're on a golf course and you're wearing a baseball hat, that's usually appropriate. But when you're in the office, you usually wouldn't wear a hat indoors. So grooming, and this is, for all genders, you want to have a clean cut, polished look. You want your hair out of your face. You don't want to be in a meeting and like nobody can see you look like Cousin It. So you always want to have your hair out of your face, whether it's pulled back or just behind your shoulders. Either way, it's appropriate as long as it's not in your face. We always say don't overpower with makeup. You don't want to be necessarily too made up. And you can always wear colors to express your personality and your style with like great colored lipstick, great colored nail polish. Men and women, should have their hands manicured or at least their cuticles clean, cleanly shaven, and then fragrance. You never want to overpower with fragrance. You just, you spray a little bit on the right points and that's it. You never want to spray fragrance on fabric because then it doesn't dissipate. It just stays there all day. So you definitely don't want to wear fragrance sprayed on fabric. So public speaking, that's Myka speaking at a conference. Okay, so what do you want to do with public speaking? First, you want to know your audience. You want to know who you're speaking to. You want to know what they expect from you. Why are they at this conference? Are they at this conference because they are learning sales? Are they at this conference because you're talking about marketing? Whatever it is, you want to have an understanding of who you're talking to, what they're interested in learning about, and what the knowledge level is. If you're talking to senior level people, then you might not do more entry level stuff. So you want to make sure you have that information. You also want to connect with the audience. It's hard on Zoom for me to like connect with you. I'm not seeing your faces. I can make a joke and it could fall flat, or you might be laughing behind your camera. I don't know. But definitely if you're public speaking, you want to connect with your audience. You also want to show them that you have something in common. Talk about, activities that you guys are all doing. If you're at a conference and they're having horseback riding or Segway ride, oh, I just went on the horseback ride and and make a connection and have some kind of commonality with them. You can also interact with them before you get into your speech, just to confirm, engage their knowledge, ask them questions, to encourage them to answer back. Sometimes people raise their hands, sometimes people shout out the answers. It's up to you how you want to get the responses, but it's really important that you kind of understand where they are. Also, you want to get acclimated to the room, especially if you're in a large room with a large group of people. So you might want to go into this room beforehand, whether right beforehand or a day before, just kind of see the room so you know like where the light's going to be, where the monitors are going to be. Is there going to be a clock so you can see how much time you have left? Where's the mic? Where's your glass of water going to be? Are you coming in from here? Are you exiting through there? So you don't need to go through a whole rehearsal necessarily, but you definitely want to get acclimated with the size of the room and feel comfortable, maybe test the audio equipment, that your PowerPoint presentation is going to work, all of that. And then just remember that they're there to hear you because you have something valuable to share. And they're there to listen and learn from you. And that's why they're there. So you've already won them over because they're sitting there and they're listening to you. So you just want to remember. And sometimes it's hard to be like, why are they listening to me? Or like, I hope they're interested. But they're there to learn something from you. So it's like today, if you take one thing away from this, that's great. And it could be to hand a business card with two hands, or it could be to compliment people on their speeches. But whatever it is, just know that people are there to learn from you and they're usually excited to be there. Now, managing your nerves. If you tend to get nervous before public speaking, rehearse your presentation. Practice what you're saying. You can rehearse and record it so you can listen to it back. You can rehearse it in front of an audience so you can get an idea. They can say you spoke a little fast there, you should elaborate there. You also, some of the things you can do is just, things to do just naturally, like if you meditate or you do yoga, or I don't do either, but like you just slow your breathing, and take a few deep breaths to kind of calm your nerves. Definitely eat something before you go on stage. Sometimes people are just so nervous that they forget to eat. Try to eat something, even if it's just like a piece of bread, a piece of fruit, something. Have water or something to drink on stage. So if your mouth gets dry or you get a little nervous, sometimes it's easier to just kind of like hold the glass, something in your hand. If you're not holding a microphone or note cards, something to hold in your hand can make you a little bit more comfortable. Don't tell your audience you're nervous. Don't go out there and be like, I am so nervous. I have no idea how I'm going to do this. Like, they're not there to hear that. And they're never going to know. You might feel that like, oh, they can tell I'm nervous. They can't tell you're nervous. I promise you, they can't tell. You want to speak at a steady pace. We're in an hour and I have 30 slides to go through. So I tend to, and I'm also from New York, so I talk really, really fast. So I'm trying to slow it down. But practice your pace and practice. If you have a certain amount of time, set a timer. Your phone has a timer. Look at the microwave has a timer. The oven has a timer. Put on a timer and just be like, okay, I have 5 minutes to do this, or my speech is 7.5 minutes long, and practice so that you get more comfortable and you can slow down how you're saying, so what you're saying, so people understand what you're saying and they can hear it, and that you know that you're getting everything that you want to across. Now, you can either do two things. You can walk across the stage. I mean, I'm sitting in a chair because we're on Zoom, but you could walk across the stage if you want, and you can maneuver and you can interact with an audience that way, kind of like a comedian. Like if you watch like an HBO or Netflix special, you see them moving around a lot. Or if you're more comfortable, you could stay at a podium with your cards in front of you. Whatever is comfortable, no one is going to judge you. No one's going to be like, that was a great speech, but they walked around too much. No, it was a great speech. That's all they're going to remember. Okay, so these are some breathing exercises. So it's called the 5x5 breathing exercise, which can help your body relax. So you can begin by standing and sitting up straight. Relax your neck and your shoulders. You want to breathe in slowly for 5 seconds and just focus on the sensation of the breath, and then do it again and do it for 2 or 3 minutes. And that's like one way that you can kind of help calm your nerves. But also, whatever you need to calm your nerves, calm your nerves. Me, I eat Cheerios. I don't know why. I eat no milk. I just dry Cheerios. It calms me down. It fills me up. That's what I do. You do what you do, whatever you need to do to calm yourself down. And that's what's important, is that you can get on stage and you can talk and you can be good. Now, the other thing is you want to increase your confidence. So one thing, if you were invited to speak in front of a group, whether it's in front of a class group, whether it's in front of a group of your peers, or presentation in front of colleagues or clients or potential colleagues or clients, that's amazing. And you should feel confident in the fact that you were selected to do that, and that you, obviously there's awareness that you have this knowledge and that you are a really great person or the best person to give that presentation. Now, that being said, you want to package yourself. What does that mean? You want to stand up straight. You don't want to be sitting or standing out and on the stage with a hunchback, like this, because it seems like you're not confident. You want to wear something that makes you feel confident. Some people are comfortable in sneakers, some people are comfortable in heels, some people are comfortable in boots, whatever it is, clothing, whatever makes you feel confident, whatever makes you feel good. Like, you want to, what is that commercial? And now I'm going to age myself. It's like Vidal Sassoon, when you look good, we feel good. Like that's the kind of saying, it's like, when you look good, you feel good. Like, it's good, not say you need to go shopping and buy an outfit, but put on something that makes you feel confident, that you're like, this is great. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to impress. Your voice. If you go out there and you're looking good and then you go, hi, everybody, it's nice to see you. Like, no, you have to have a strong voice. So practice, make sure your voice is loud. That doesn't mean you have to be booming. You'll most likely have a microphone, but the idea is that you have to have a strong voice and that people can clearly hear you, that you're enunciating each word, and that and you're not garbling it so that people can't hear or understand what you're saying. You also want to build a rapport with your audience. So in the beginning, you can ask them questions. Hey, I'm from Cleveland. Anybody here from Cleveland? Oh, cool. Like, how many people are here from New York? What about California? Like, break the ice a little bit. It's not you're going to go to every single person, but like with the crowd, like just break the ice a little bit, loosen up a little bit. They'll loosen up a little bit. The other thing is you want to organize. You want to organize your notes. You have your presentation. You know what you're going to say. Sometimes what you might do, or what we do sometimes, is we plan ahead in case people are shy about asking questions. And what we'll do is we'll write out 5 questions that we think are the most asked questions that we get for a certain topic. And then this way, if nobody has a question, we can say, what's a common question that we get, or one question we get a lot is, and then we ask that. And then once people, or you pretend and say, oh, I got a question from Jane. Jane wants to know, there's no Jane, but no one's going to know that. It's not like they're trying to find out who she is. So you just make it seem like other people, oh, someone asked a question, I'm going to ask a question. So it's important that you plan ahead, that you kind of have an idea of what those topics are going to be, what people are going to ask you. The other thing is you can watch and emulate other people that you admire. People that you see speaking at events. That doesn't mean you're going to say verbatim what they say, but what are they doing? Are they walking around the stage? How are they interacting with people? Do they have a presentation with a lot of graphics? Do they have a presentation with a lot of bullets? What it is? What do they have? And then most importantly, just practice, practice, practice. Are we okay if we go over?
Oh, so I was going to say, and probably 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we have 1 or 2 questions I want to get answered. So what we'll most likely do is maybe we can add some of the things to maybe dining, or maybe extend that one a little bit. But I'll be mindful of everyone's time, including yours.
No, I'm fine, but I'll go through these fast. So opening, closing remarks, get their attention by telling a story or an interesting fact. It's a really great way for people to kind of just bring them in the beginning. You can also, at the end of your talk, summarize what you talked about. It's a great way to kind of close it up and kind of get people thinking about questions. You can also end with like an inspirational thought or a challenge or a call to action. And then if people applaud you, let them applaud you and just say thank you. At the beginning of a meeting, if you're going to a meeting instead of a conference, if you're in a meeting, just welcome everybody to the meeting. Share the agenda. Make sure you can share the agenda before time so people know what their role is and what they're going to be talking about. Encourage everyone to participate. You are probably on the junior level of employees, but if you are given an opportunity to participate. Take a seat at the table. And I'm serious, like literally the table. Like if there is a table, take a seat at it. If you know that the boss sits at the head, maybe don't sit in his seat, but don't be afraid to sit at the table. Think about that. At the end of the meeting, let everyone know, like you just said, like a few minutes left, let everyone know there's 10, 15 minutes left. Let them know, if there's anything else that has to be discussed. And at the end of the meeting, summarize everything, either giving out assignments or let them know that you're going to send an email with what those assignments are going to be. For presentations, you want to have a 3-act formula. You want to have your research done. There's always an introduction about what you're going to be talking about. Act 2 is the data that supports your findings and what you're doing and talking about examples. And then Act 3 is usually the takeaways and the summary, calls to action, things like that. Each slide, there's a lot of content on these slides, and you guys will have access to this if you want to go back through it for, I think, 30, 60 days, so that you will be able to go through them more specifically. The fewer points you have on a slide sometimes are the better, because people aren't then reading the slide, they're listening to you. So that's why some slides we have a little bit more, a little bit less, but I actually had 10 more slides on public speaking, and I was like trying to condense it. So that's why these are as long as they are. And always use bullets. Paragraphs are really hard to read. Bullets are definitely easier to read. This font is 42 point, so you want to make sure it's easy for people to read. Visuals, charts, infographics are all great. You can find, there's a site called Pexels, P-E-X-E-L-S, that's all rights-free images. You just put the credit on the bottom, but Pexels is a great site for stock images. And then the other thing is make sure that you use professional and business appropriate designs. You can use some animation. My 11-year-old loves animated slides, so that says a lot. Do not do over animated slides, like stick with professional slides. Video obviously is okay, or music if you think it's appropriate. These are some nonverbal and verbal cues from your audience. So obviously you're all out of, you don't have your cameras on, so I can't read your nonverbal cues. But if people are sitting up, if they're looking at you, if they're relaxed, if they're leaning in, if their head is tilted, if they're smiling, those are all signs that they're really, engaged and it's positive. If they're sitting like this, or they're like this, or they're on their phone, you can see that they're not really engaged. If they're swiveling in their chair, if they're doodling, and this is for anything. If you're in a meeting, if you're at a conference, if you're at a comedy club, if I was at a dinner show and I was on my phone because I was so bored and really uncomfortable, and then the performer saw me and she like came over to me, she took my phone, like it was a whole crazy thing. And it was done in like jest and fun, but like, she saw that I wasn't paying attention, and so she tried to engage me in another way. But you just, you can look at people and see what they're doing. You can tell, like if I was like this during the presentation, you can tell that I'm on my phone, right? And I could tell that you were on your phone. So don't think you're fooling anyone, especially as a student. I was a professor for a semester at my alma mater, and I can tell you those kids that thought they were fooling me by being on their computer taking notes when they were probably on Facebook, like we all know. And then managing the Q&A session. Let the audience know if you're going to be taking questions throughout or at the end. Leave enough time at the end for Q&A. I'm okay if we go over a few minutes. And then also, have a moderator manage the questions if you think you won't be able to moderate themselves. Like I said before, prepare some questions in advance. The other thing that you can do is have people give everybody index cards and pens or pencils, and then someone can collect them, and then you can bring them up to the stage and you can answer questions that way. The other thing is, do not engage in a debate. Someone wants to have a fight with you or disagree with you, you can say, you know what, you're making a really interesting point. Let's talk about that afterwards. But in the middle of a presentation, whether it's in class or whether it's at a conference or in a meeting, you don't need to have a debate with someone. So that's something important to know. So then that's the end. I'm going to stop sharing so we can talk. That's Myka's book, Business Etiquette Made Easy. It has a number of the things that we talked about today in it, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And if we need to go over a little bit, I'm fine with doing that.
So I want to let the students know if you have to drop off for class, this video will be available on the Church Canvas page. I'll give you access to that after this event is done. And this event will be available to watch just for 60 days and then it'll be taken down. Just a few questions. And thank you again, Anne, for doing such a great, wonderful presentation, so much useful knowledge. A question we did get was, how do you recommend making a lasting impression when networking?
I think it's important to have something important to say. And that doesn't mean it has to be like the most important thing you've ever said, but engaging in the conversation, taking part in the conversation. The other thing is that you can constantly ask someone open-ended questions like how or why or what, and they end up talking more than you, but they think that the conversation, was a back and forth and they think very highly of it, or they enjoyed it very much. So it's really more important that you're engaging in the conversation. The other thing is that you want to look people in the eye. You don't want to be like, oh, it's nice to meet you. Who else is here? Who else can I meet? You want to engage someone in the conversation.
And another question is, you talked about business cards, but what about resumes? Like, when is it appropriate to bring resumes? Do you always bring a copy of your resume? When do you hand out your resume? So, how do you navigate that?
Never bring your resume to an event unless it is a specific job headhunter related event and the person said the website or the sponsor of the event says bring copies of your resume. Bring a business card. Your resume is way too big, and unless you're at like a headhunter event where like you're going from table to table like at a job fair and you're giving information that way where they're sitting at a table and they're collecting it, but at a networking event it's the business card. That's what it is all time. I would not do a business card with a QR code exclusively. I know QR codes are now the thing because of menus at restaurants, and it used to be a thing a long time ago when QR codes first came out about 15 years ago. They would be like, oh, here's my business card. It's a QR code. And I'd be like, I don't know what to do with this. I would just have a very clean calling card. It could be in a color. It could be in a shape. It could be thick. It could be Moo, M-O-O. That's the company, Moo, M-O-O. They do business cards, and they do a really nice job printing them as well. So I would say with a resume, one, your students. So have your resume, one page. There is no reason for it to go to the second page. If you want a job in childcare, then say that you were a babysitter. Do not waste space. If it's going to push to the next page, like jobs that are not related to what you're going to, and that if you need space to keep it on one page, that's the kind of thing. Like the address line can go. There's certain things like I babysat, for one summer. Like you can pull that out unless you're going for a job in childcare. So, think about how to cut it down. Do not make it less than 8 points, because look, I'm 40 years old. I would be like, I can't read it. So do not do it less than 8 points. You can widen the margins if you need to. Do not bring me an 11 by 17 piece of paper. It's still 8.5 by 11. And also save it as a PDF, and do not save it in Word or Pages, whichever program you use. And the reason why is that I have Word, you have Pages. You've sent this to me, and now I opened it and the format changed because I don't have that font or whatever. So always save it as a PDF and share it as a PDF, because that's the best way to make sure that they get it in the same format that you want them to see it. But I would not bring a resume to anything, and definitely only like a job interview, yes, but not an informational interview. These off because I hear that they're going to die.
Now, are you good?
Yes, I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
If you hear my parents or my kids, I apologize. Okay, sorry. Okay, next question.
And then a question was, regarding style, are there any guidelines when it comes to face masks? What is considered appropriate for a formal attire?
For formal attire specifically, or just in general?
two prongs. So what are there guidelines when it comes to face masks? Question 1. Question 2, what is a considered appropriate attire for formal attire?
So every company might have their own rule regarding face masks. Some companies might say, 2 masks. Some might have like a branded one for their company that they give you. And others might say, you know what, as long as it's covering your nose and your face and it's 2 fabrics, whether it's a medical one or a fabric one, they're fine with it. I get all my masks from pqswim.com because it's bathing suit material and I find it really comfortable and it comes in really fun patterns. Some other people, they're like, I prefer, the KN95 black ones. So that's really up to you. But I would check with your company and what your job is to see what guidelines they require. For a formal event, I would pick something that goes with your outfit. The KN95 in all black looks amazing. Like I would say, like if you're wearing like a black, like especially for guys who are wearing, or any woman might be wearing a tuxedo, it's sleek and it's clean. I was wearing a camo mask today for no other reason than I thought it was fun. And then the day before, I was wearing something tie-dye. So I think masks are like shoes and bags. They're like your personality. So as long as you're following the guidelines of what's appropriate for that setting, like medically and health wise, I think you're fine. For a formal event, there's so much variety out there. You could probably find something that could match your outfit. Whether it's a solid color like black. I tend to stay away from white. One, because it looks like a diaper. If there's a seam down the middle, it just looks like a diaper. But the other thing is it gets very dirty because like dust goes on it. And so it's just I kind of tend to stay away from white unless it's the medical KN95. But I would just also choose something that's comfortable for you. There are some masks that are adjustable, like they have like the bra strap things that you can adjust around your ears. I find those really uncomfortable and other people find them great. So I think it's important that you follow the health and safety guidelines, choose something that fits your personality, matches your outfit. Doesn't mean it has to match exactly. But like, for example, there's a mask from PQ Swim I know that's white or black lace and it has a lining underneath. So it looks like lace, but it has a nude lining underneath. And I know a number of brides who got that for their wedding because it was like bridally and it was, appropriate and safe. But you can have I think, go crazy, have fun, let your personality shine.
And that was the last question. So thank you so much, Anne, and thank you for students who were able to stay a little bit over. Our next event with Beaumont is actually going to be on dining etiquette as stuff reopens, and there's going to be more networking events in person. Even the Church Center, we are hosting a tour actually at the end of April. We're limiting to 10 people, but we're doing partial in-person event. Dining etiquette is going to be more important than ever. That's going to be on April 29th at noon Pacific time. So go up to Startup Tree and sign up for that. And again, thank you, Anne, so much for the informative session. This event will probably be up on Monday to review on Canvas. But thank you for attending today. And again, Anne, thank you so much. And we can't wait to see you in a few weeks.
Well, thank you so much. And if there are any questions come up or if anyone has questions after watching the recording, you can always reach out to us at I'm Anne at Beaumont Etiquette, and I'm happy to reach out and answer any questions.
And also, students, if you have any questions, follow-up questions, you can email back to the email that you received from Entrepreneurship with this link, and we'll send it over to Beaumont on your behalf.
All right. Take care,
Okay,
guys.
thank you so much, Erin. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.